Woman Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Wednesday night and it's time to do a recap of Teen Mom 2. I know. I have been going back and forth for several months on whether or not I'm going to cover Teen Mom OG and Teen Mom 2. I did most of last season of Teen Mom OG, and I know that a lot of you guys have left it and don't care, but I feel like I have a humongous audience still that started with me because of my coverage on the show, and I feel like if I walked away from it, I would be betraying my subscribers that started with me because of my coverage of the show, and I want to make sure that I thank them and give them what they want. So I know a lot of you are not watching the show anymore, and so I'm going to do some recaps. We'll see how it goes this season, and last night's episode started out with a bang. So if you remember last season, there was the stuff that happened at the reunion. So there was that massive fight that had contained Ashley Jones from Teen Mom Young and Pregnant. And then there was this stuff with Leah and Jeremy sort of calling out Corey, and then Corey tweeted about it, and he was super angry about what Jeremy said. Jeremy basically said that Corey was not a good dad or something like that, to the extent that he doesn't go to all of the doctor's appointments for Allie. Well, Leah is met with the aftermath, and so she is walking off the stage, and she is kind of upset with what Jeremy did, because she has to deal with both Jeremy and Corey independently of one another, and she says that she has a good relationship with both, and she doesn't want to end up back in court with Corey because Jeremy says something that upsets him. So she sits down and she's out in the back with her sister Victoria, and Victoria thinks that Jeremy had a really good point and Leah just doesn't want to address it. And they talk about how Corey should be there more, and Leah just said, this is what works for us. And then when Jeremy walks in, she says, well, how do you feel about it? And Jeremy said, I think it went great. I said what I wanted to say and blah, blah, blah. So Jeremy stands by the fact that he thinks that Corey should be going to more doctor's appointments, and he is not really worried about it. Leah sits there kind of in the middle, upset because she doesn't want to upset Corey, and she's afraid of what he's going to see when he actually watches it, because he wasn't able to be at the reunion. Okay, so now on to Briana. Briana has, last season, she was going to be building a new house, so that house is still in construction. She's still dealing with the daddy drama between Devon and Lewis, and this first episode is going to go right into Lewis. So she goes over to her friend Shirley's house and sits down with her and talks to her about, Devon is still Devon. He comes around, he sees it, he's never going to change. Sometimes he sees her, sometimes he doesn't. And she said with Lewis, she doesn't really know what's going on. And then they go through this whole recap of how Lewis was cheating on her, and he had been cheating on her the whole time. And she said that he's no longer out trucking because Lewis had talked to Roxanne about it. And she says that he never comes by to see his daughter ever, but he's back in Orlando. And she says that she was up on Instagram and she finds out that he's going to be at a club, and she wants to go over there and pop up and see him. And she's like, we're going to go show our faces. She's like, I might get drunk, I might get emotional, but I want to talk to him. All right. So then Jade is also back at the reunion. So I'm not sure why some people ended up at the reunion and other people didn't, but Jade is back there too, dealing with her mother. And if you remember, her mom and her got into a heated altercation at the last reunion as well, and her mom had left the stage crying. Well, Jade is with her mom. Her mom sort of collects herself. She's crying, she's upset, and they sit down to have lunch. Sean is there, and Jade's grandparents are there, and then her mom is there. And her mom is just sitting there. They're about to eat lunch, sort of in a conference room, and Sean asks her if she's okay, and she says that she's been really upset because while she's been on the show, her name has been completely dragged through the mud. And she said, Jade's like, well, I don't make any of you be on the show. You don't have to be on the show if this is what you feel like. Almost like holding the show over their heads, like, you don't have to do this. Like, almost like her mom gets mad because it seems like Jade is just sort of like acting like it's a privilege for them to be on the show. And her mom starts yelling at her for being disrespectful and tells Jade, like, don't talk to me like that. You've changed. You would never talk to me like this before. And she just they keep going back and forth, and her mom gets up and she loses it, and they're cursing, and they get in each other's face. Jade's telling her to leave. Her mom is screaming at her, saying like, you've changed. You've never talked to me like this. Like the show has made her head implode to the point where it's like, you guys are here because of me. So if you don't like how you're being treated, it's totally not my problem because you don't have to be on the show. You know, and I'll be fair, like I've heard criticism like this in the past. I've talked to Mackenzie Edwards, who is Ryan Edwards' wife, and she has talked about how the supporting cast members are not treated as well and they don't get the same benefit of the doubt from the producers, and their storylines are to serve the girls, and so they don't have to be painted in a good light, and the producers can do whatever they want with it. So they were mad because Jade always gets painted in a certain way, and her mom's just like, don't get holier than thou in me, blah, 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 blah. And Jade says that she doesn't want to film anymore. She kicks her mom out. She kicks the whole camera crew off. She rips off her mic, and then she's done. So that's Jade. Jade and her mom start off fighting, per usual. All right, so Chelsea. Chelsea is in South Dakota. She's going over to a shop. If you remember last season, at the end of last season, they were talking about starting a new fashion line for her with her friend's boutique. Not like a line, sort of a line, but her friend has like a boutique in Sioux Falls, and so she goes over to her friend's boutique to go check on some of the stuff, looks at one of the flannels that she gets, and while she's at her friend's boutique, she gets a call from the police. And last season as well, they had a robbery in their home, and they say that they've arrested someone who has been burglarizing places around. They found some property, and they think maybe they found some of hers. So they're asking her to come down and look at it. She's kind of worried about it because she doesn't know if she wants to go see it. She goes home to talk to Cole about it. And she's like talking about how, she's been in therapy. She's been on medication. She's been doing everything that she can to get her anxiety in a check. And she's feeling really triggered by this because it sent her into a spiral. And Cole has said that he's glad if they find their stuff. And she's sort of worried that all of this is going to undo everything. Now on to Kail. She talks about how her relationship with Javi is at a good place. She and Joe have improved since her Hawaii trip when they were fighting. And she said that her relationship with Chris has taken a turn. She moved to be closer to Chris, and now she said that she never sees him. She thought moving there would make them see each other more, make him see Lux more, but she says he does not see Lux more. So then she says she finds out a rumor that he might have gotten another girl pregnant, but he denies it. She says Chris didn't. And so when the producer comes in to talk to her about it, and he says, well, what are you going to do with this? Like, how do you find out? How do you verify this? And she says, well, you know what? Chris didn't tell his family about my pregnancy for a very long time. So if he hasn't told his family about this pregnancy, then I'm just going to go with the assumption that this isn't really happening. And she says, I'm just going to listen to Chris and see, he's innocent until he's proven guilty. And the producer kind of rolls his eyes at her. I don't know. How do you trust Chris? I mean, Chris was like, she and Chris had this relationship where she was like the other woman. So I don't know how you would believe Chris anyway, even if he told you no, but I digress. So on to Briana. She is actually going to go with her friend to see Lewis at the club, and she's going to confront them there. He gets there. He's working. She texts him. They decide they're going to talk when he's done working. Back to Leah. I know, like some of the clips in this video were in this episode were just so short, and I was like, really, that's all that happened? So Leah is back from New York. So it's like a couple months later because the reunion has just aired. So the time lapse on this is all over the place because some people are just at the reunion, then a couple months later. Anyways, she talks about how Corey had put out those really angry tweets, and that Corey, she says that again, she didn't like it. Had always been that way about him not going to appointments, so it had always worked for them. And Jeremy just sort of added fuel to the fire. And then Corey actually shows up for a minute, and he is literally having breakfast with some of his friends, and he said that the drama train rolled all over him. His friends pointed out that the way that Jeremy had portrayed him, he looked like a deadbeat dad. And I will say, yeah, Jeremy kind of did that. And Jeremy doesn't really have any place to talk, by the way. He's always out of town. I always thought that those comments by Jeremy were just so extra. Like, he was trying to, like, be in Leah's good graces because I think he was trying to go to, like, he's trying to go downtown with Leah. You know what I'm saying? So he would have said anything to, like, if he thought he could. He was trying to be, like, chivalrous in a way. Anyways. He says that he and Leah have a good relationship, so the entire thing that Jeremy said felt like it came out of left field. But he said the worst thing is that he wasn't there to defend himself, and that after he watched the show, he let his emotions get the better of him, and he actually tweeted and he regretted it. Okay, so that's the end of Corey, and that's all we see of him in that episode. All right, back to Jade. It's very random how this all happens, but they're suddenly back at where she's from, and she says that she and her mom are totally fine. They've made up. They're working back together at her grandma's restaurant. And so she says that they've made up, but then suddenly things with Sean and her have fallen apart. And so she and Sean are now on the outs, and she's planning Chloe's birthday party. And so while she's trying to plan his birthday party, she ends up inviting Sean's grandparents, who Sean really doesn't like. And she says that she wishes Sean and his grandparents would actually put their differences aside. So anyways, while she's got this cake, her friend's got this cake in her hand. She's literally got a kid in the back seat. Sean texts her, and she's driving, by the way. Like, you guys, you're on TV. You should not be texting and driving, okay? It's not that hard to, like, not text and drive. Anyways, Sean sends her a text message while she's driving and says, tell our daughter happy birthday. And then Jade is like so upset. She says she's going to have a ton of anxiety, and she's mad at him that he wouldn't even just go to the party, and like she has to say happy birthday to him. Anyways, back to Kaylin. Now she's back in Delaware, and she's thinking about Chris's pregnancy. She goes to pick up Lincoln, and from from Javi's house, asks Lincoln how he had a good time. Lincoln's like, I went to church and I didn't like it. And then she asks him why he didn't like it, and she's like, all he talked about was God and Jesus. And she was like, okay, well, what do you believe? Do you believe in God? And he's like, I believe in all of them. Buddha, God, and Jesus. And then Kaylin laughs. It was actually kind of cute. Anyways, Isaac gets picked up, and he says that everything's cool. Then it's back to her house, and she's getting a text message from this girl who basically is saying that you better tell your man that his baby is coming, and it's coming in February, and Lux is going to be able to meet his brother. And she's doesn't know what to make of it. She sends the screenshot of it to Chris, and she calls Chris, and Chris denies it and says that it isn't at all a thing. And she said, but what if he did get someone pregnant? And she's like, the biggest problem for her is she doesn't want to keep the siblings apart the way that she was kept from her siblings. So she said that she would always make a point that if something happened to Joe, that she and V would be able to keep their kids together. She said even though she hates Lauren, the girl had to go out of her way to say she hates Lauren, who, by the way, isn't on the show. I just thought that was so shady. You can say somebody's name without saying that you hate Lauren. Anyways, that she would still find a way for Lincoln and his brother to be friends. Seriously, Kail, you don't have to say you hate Lauren. I mean, she does sell Airbond, but whatever. There's other things to do. Anyways, back to her. She's super emotional about this. She's crying, and she said it would just be really hard to imagine him having a baby with someone else, because that would kind of be the end of things. But she would have to make it work, because if he did have a baby, she would want Lux to know the sibling. And she's sort of crying and super emotional, and I actually felt kind of bad for her. Chelsea. She's getting into the car, and she's with Cole, and they're driving to the police station to go look at the stuff. She's kind of having a moment where she's not feeling very good. She's feeling very stressed out. And, Cole is just trying his best to kind of be chill about things, and they're kind of talking about I didn't realize how much this affected us until we had this happen, and it's affected all of us more than we really know. And she's really edgy, and he's trying to console her, and she's just kind of snapping at him. I can totally feel her anxiety here, and I feel for her here. This is stressful, and she doesn't want to do it. And then they walk in, and obviously they can't film with the cameras. Okay, so back to Briana. Briana's straight, faded, she's wasted, she's hammered, whatever you want to call it. She's drunk. She's been drinking a ton, and she confronts Lewis. And so he is at this new place. He's at the club, and he tells her hey, he finally meet up outside, and she's like, well, what are you doing? is this your new job? And he says yeah, I've landed this new gig, and this is what I'm going to be doing from now on. And he basically tells her that he's going to be back in Orlando. And so she's just like, well, why don't you come and see Stella? You're missing out on this. I don't understand. And he says that he feels like he can't provide for her, so he just stays away, which makes zero sense. And it makes him feel like crap. And so then she's upset that he's missing out on Stella, and basically reminds him that Stella is this amazing girl. And so therefore, he needs to step up. I don't understand this whole idea about how you don't feel like you can provide, so therefore you stay away. No sense. A baby doesn't care if you can't give them diapers. A baby just wants their daddy. So Lewis, stop being a man child and literally be a dad. Ugh, drives me nuts when guys are like this. Okay, back to Leah. Leah doesn't want to go back to have any animosity at all between her and Corey. Jeremy's upset at Corey for not going to all the appointments. She said that she talks to Jeremy on the phone and she's basically like, maybe me and Corey need to have a conversation about this. You know, I don't really want to argue about it. And then Jeremy's just like, I'm just going to do me, man. And she's like, yeah, do you. And then she goes into Allie's room and Allie's laying down and they're talking about her upcoming appointment, I'm assuming with her doctor who handles her muscular dystrophy. And Allie says that she's excited for the appointment. And Leah then asks her, do you want your dad to go? And she says she does want her dad to be there. And she said, well, I didn't realize you wanted your dad to be there. I always just did it because I have a more flexible schedule. But I'll see if your dad wants to go. And then she said, do you want mommy to be there? And she goes, well, when mommy's there, it's fun. Allie's so cute. Can I just say the winners on this show are always the kids. Always the kids. Okay. Back to Jade and her drama. So Jade's the replacement for Janelle Eason, by the way, who just put out episodes of she's telling the truth, y'all. Like, seriously, Janelle's telling the truth in 6 episodes about what happened to her and why she got fired. You can watch her cry about her job and how much she has been the victim of everything. Meanwhile, Jade's rolling all over the bank and taking Janelle's spot. She is full of drama and she's back at Grandma's restaurant. She brings Chloe's cake. Chloe shows up with one of her friends. She looks super adorable. She is like the cutest little toddler. And then Sean isn't going to be at the party, so that makes her super upset. And then suddenly Sean shows up and he's got this like pole that he made, or a board that has like the notches for your height. So it has like 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, 5 foot. And it's painted pink. And he brings that over to her and then he walks in and everyone's eating and then he sees his grandparents and he freaks out and acts like a man-child. What is with these men and the man-child? So he's just like, why are they here? And he's like kicking in the air and he's like throwing off his his mic pack. And I'm just like, seriously, you are an adult. This is your child. What are you doing? Why are you acting like boy? And then he has a temper tantrum. Jade tries to go out there and talk to him and he's like, get out of here. I'm not filming. And I'm like, seriously, Sean? All the men, not all the men, Cole's not a man-child, but some of the guys on this show are such man-child. Okay, anyways, back to Chelsea. She has finished at the police station, finds out none of it's hers. She calls Randalicious, tells Randy about how they had to go through every single bag, cut them open. She was super disappointed because as they kept going through every single bag, none of it belonged to them. So Cole then says, you know, well, we're just going to have to I just want to move on. I don't ever want to talk about this again. And I'm thinking, yeah, stuff it down and don't deal with the trauma that your wife is dealing with, Cole. Come on. I like Cole, but sometimes I feel like Cole just is one of those guys that he's not that deep. You know what I mean? And so she's just like, well, it would be nice if we could actually close it with having closure. And he doesn't really say anything. All right, so back to Briana, and this is where it ends. So Briana basically is like talking to Lewis. He admits he wants to get back together with her. And like he says that he's going to try. And she's like, so she goes from literally like yelling at him about how he needs to spend time with Stella to like literally they are going to be like getting back together. So he goes from being a deadbeat dad to a boyfriend. And the reason why he's not seeing Stella now isn't because he feels like crap. It's because he wants to be with her, even though he cheated on her and he doesn't deserve to be with her. And then she's so drunk. She's like, let's go get an Uber and go back to his house. Now we know coming up, she's going to find out that she gets like something from him, like the gifts that you get when you don't wear protection. And the guy's been putting his place in things that aren't full of stuff. Like they're sharing things that you don't want to have, maybe itchy things or things that make things look different or weird or, you know, like the stuff that you just makes things burn. Yeah, you don't want that. So apparently we're going to find out that Lewis gives her that, and it could be from this night. Who knows? So Briana makes a terrible decision when she's drinking. That is like literally the story of so many women in their 20s and young men. Sometimes even into your 30s, 40s, 50s. Hey, we all make bad decisions, and alcohol almost always is a culprit. So Briana goes off with Lewis, and that's the end of the episode. So Chelsea is still feeling upset about the robbery. Jade and Sean are fighting. Leah and Corey haven't resolved anything. Briana is going to go pick up an STI from Lewis, and then we've got Kail, who's super upset about Chris, who may or may not have someone pregnant or may just have some really icky troll trolling her. And if it's a troll on doing that to her, that's like the worst thing in the world. And Kail does get trolled super hard. So getting trolled with like a fake pregnancy just to get someone upset is like the worst. But I guess we'll have to figure out soon if it's true or not, and it'll all play out in this upcoming season. All right, you guys, so tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Do you want more of this? Do you not? Do you love it? Are you bored? All right, you guys, I'll be back next week with more on Teen Mom 2. Bye, guys.